Okay, so this particular week, my micro lesson is kind of on the difference between, and this is piggybacking on our discussion, and this is the difference between a const and, well, let's focus on the difference between a syntactical error and a logic error. So, very simply put, if I go in, this happens sometimes because as you're typing the word dim, if I type dime str sample as string, that is a syntactical error. You'll notice initially when I type in dime, it'll actually go through all the examples because here's what's happening. Dime is not dim, obviously, so it doesn't understand what str sample is because right preceding the, or right after where we write dime or dim, would be the name of the variable. So its expectation is, okay, here's as string, so I should be declaring the name of the variable, and before that I should be giving it its dimension. Right now it's in nothing, so it doesn't really understand any of that, and that's what the red squiggly underline is. Then if we have str sample equals text sample.text, now we have the circumstance where, oh, well, str sample, which used to be our variable, is no longer a variable, so it doesn't understand what str sample is. And then we go down here and it says str sample equals lbl sample, so it doesn't understand any of that anymore and it makes no sense. So what I can now do is I can go up to dime, change it to dim, click out it, and everything works. Now to kind of continue with our logic error, meaning this is the way I intended it to work, but it doesn't work that way. Let's say, for instance, I say str sample equals txt samples. Let's see if it'll do samples or give me an error. It does give me an error. Okay, so let's do, it's hard to do these. Str sample equals dog, right? So in my particular case, I have the expectation that I'm going to input one thing in the other, and this is going to occur. So now when I run this, I'm going to go ahead and run this bad boy. And it'll start eventually. Right? So now I'm looking at this thing and I'm going, okay, input the value to the right in the text box. Okay, so I'm going to put in happy person, just because it's like that. And then I'm going to put copy value. My expectation is that, hey, I've run this before, it'll take this value, I'll push copy value, and then it'll put it over here. But when I push copy value, it says dog. That's an example of a logic error, meaning that still works, doesn't have an error, but it does have an error. You know, it doesn't have an error syntactically because the computer's doing exactly what you tell it to do. However, there's definitely a problem with the way it's working. So let me go ahead and close that. I hope that helps where that's concerned. The other thing is, let's see, it's been a long time since I used const, because if I was being totally honest, const DC taxes tax as decimal DC. I have too many programming languages in my head, so it might not know. Oh, it doesn't like that. How about just tax? TAX. Let's see if it'll just take tax. Ha! It does not like const. Local tax as decimal, constructs have a value. Oh, as decimal equals, and that makes sense, 0.05. You can see how often I use a constant. Okay, so what I've done, and I'm going to write DEC in front of it now. DEC, since I worked through that. Okay, so I've declared, oh, poop on a stick. Alright, so let's do this. Really? Okay. So in this particular case, I've declared DEC tax as the decimal at 0.05. Which then means if I can come in here and I'm using any of these, I could do like I could do str sample equals DEC tax times 20. Str sample 2, and it's going to give me an error because I haven't declared it, equals DEC tax times 30. Str sample 3 equals DEC tax times 40. Now, I'm not going to go through and declare all these STR samples, but the idea now is I can go through this and I can say, all right, let's say, for instance, next year, the decimals change, right? The taxes change. So I'm going to go up here and I just have to change this to 0.65065 and all the values will be fine. But I can't change that within runtime. Like I can't input this right here in runtime. I have to change the value in the code itself to then have it reflected in the program itself. And the benefit of doing that is that I know that I have to get inside the program to make that change. So there's no errors, there's no modifications. It's not going to allow me to change DEC tax at runtime. It's just not going to do that. So like if I came in here and I said, let's see if it'll let me change. I have too many versions of stuff in my head. Equals 0.065, and it should, yeah, it gives me an error because of the fact that I have declared DEC tax as decimal here, and right here I'm assigning a value to it at runtime, which I'm not supposed to do with constants. And it's, remember, when you come up with whatever value that you want to declare a constant as, you set it in such a way it's not something you would normally change. So I hope that helps. I hope that it works really well. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, continue the work and the good discussion.